Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Community Team Q&A. We have these every week at this time, and so if you're watching us live, howdy and hello. This week I have my fellow teammate from the Community Team, Michael Hall, here with me, and we also have a special guest, Zoltan, and Zoltan's from the SDK team, so we'll be talking about all things SDK and Qt Creator. So if you have any questions about those sorts of topics, this is the week for you. So the whole purpose of the call is to have a sort of live Q&A, as you guys' chance to talk to us. And like I said, we have a special guest, so you can specifically talk about the SDK this week, and we have a live in-house expert to talk about that. So in order to ask your question, if you're watching us on ubuntuonair.com, you'll see right below there's a nice little Hangout IRC box, and inside there it connects you to #ubuntu-on-air on Freenode. If you have an IRC client, you can join the channel that way as well. And then just ask your question. And so go ahead and type it out, and as you type it out, make sure to prefix with the word question in all capitals, and that just helps us to see the questions and make sure we pick them up and go ahead and ask them. And then you'll see the answer hopefully shortly after you ask on the video stream. There is a little bit of delay, and of course the questions will build up, so it might be a few minutes before you see your response, but we'll try and answer any and all questions that we get via IRC. So I think that's everything. So I think we're going to go ahead and start. Again, if you've got questions, feel free to ask them now. We'll let those queue up, and we're going to go ahead and let Zoltan sort of give us a little background and talk a little bit about the SDK, how we got where we are, and what it looks like going forward in the future.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Zoltan, and I'm member of the SDK team for Ubuntu Touch. And so I try to give you some background context how the SDK happens and where it's coming from. So the SDK project is about 2 years old, 3 years old project. So we started off when the first Ubuntu Touch was announced and released. And so we came out with the SDK too, and since then we are pretty much in the rolling release model. So we fix bugs on a weekly, daily basis, and we add new features, and we try to follow down the platform development. What SDK is, like software development kit, it's a very vague term. So many misunderstandings are around this concept. So the SDK in our case, it consists of tools primarily. One important tool in the whole SDK toolset is the Qt Creator. We have chosen the Qt Creator because essentially the core technology of Ubuntu Touch and our application development is QML, quick, and so Qt. And Qt Creator is native to the Qt projects. That's what used for most of the Qt-based applications and projects. And it's a fairly good IDE. So it gives lots of features, and it's very comfortable. Of course, there were other options like using Eclipse and even like Homebrew and simpler tools. But we figured out that Qt Creator is just good for us. And so we started to create plugins for this stock Qt Creator, and so we came up with this Qt Creator plugin Ubuntu model, so that but we don't need to fork the Qt Creator, we don't need to send patches to the upstream. We just create a plugin and we deal with it our own. So that's Qt Creator 1. The other important part of the SDK tools is the Click tool set, the whole Click project. It's actually a bunch of tools and a bunch of features it provides. One important part is the Click change route. So the Click change route is actually a very, very simple, basic change route, and you use this change route to build your applications against. The story is that with this Ubuntu SDK, we and you stop developing on your host. I know it's a foreign idea for many that you do not actually compile and build and package your application on your host, but you do it in a change route or in a rootfs, a sys route. The idea is that actually your environment, your machine is a changing and very different. It can be very unique, very special environment, when actually the APIs you want to build your application should be standard one. So that's where the idea is coming from, that we provide a change route where the APIs are, as the platform defines the APIs, and the tools and compilers and everything what you need is present. So that's the click change route. So actually when you open the Qt Creator and you start developing your application, when you run, when you build, you're really not supposed to depend on your environment. So all you need is the Qt Creator Ubuntu SDK package and its dependencies. It's a lot, so it's not little. But technically, you're not really supposed to build and run on your desktop. You're supposed to run in the emulator, and you're supposed to build against the click change route. So yeah, I mentioned the third very important component of the SDK, and that's the emulator. So the Ubuntu emulator is either an ARMHF or an x86 emulator of the phone or the file image. So technically, you can deploy, create an emulator which looks like and behaves like a real phone, with its limitations. Obviously, you don't have several peripherals and devices. I mean, if you don't have like GPS and camera and other stuff, it's not really hooked in. But from the point of the user interface development, it's pretty complete and exactly the same as the real device. So to sum up, these are the three most important components: the Qt Creator as the ID, where you edit your project and the code; the click change route, where you actually build and compile your project; and the emulator, where actually you can deploy this application and you can try out, you can verify that everything is okay. So that's what the tool set. Other than that, when it comes to SDK definition and what do we call an SDK, the other very important part is actually the API set. That's a little bit more complicated if you are not familiar with that. I hope and I guess most of you are familiar with the idea of APIs, but just to with a very brief. So when let's say when you have a device, just please, I mean, Nicholas or Michael, just stop me if you think that I'm going to deep details. But so imagine that you have a device, and this device has a beautiful Bluetooth component, and you as a platform developer, you as a platform provider, you want to enable application developers to create applications that are using this Bluetooth stack. Obviously, you need to have not only the libraries on the device, but also in the SDK, you need to have all the APIs published. So when your application wants to access the Bluetooth stack, it needs to have a gateway, that API, that kind of like interface to this stack. So that's one API, and we have many of those APIs. We have APIs for all the platform components like camera, sensors, accelerometer, GPS, and also like the UI components are a set of APIs. So if you say that I want to program the UI, because that's like in an abstract way, it's about the same as I want to program the Bluetooth stack. So I want to program the UI, then you need to know the APIs for that. And the most essential, the most important API set is the UI toolkit. So if you want to create your own UI, you will be provided an API set, and that's the UI toolkit. So like buttons, list, pages, you name it. We have a bunch of them, and it's all documented in the developer Ubuntu.com. So this is the other part of the SDK. So we have tools and we have a bunch of APIs that either we develop ourselves, like the UI toolkit, or we got it from the Qt upstream. Most of these APIs are available in QML. So that's what we call like the highest level of the APIs. That's the easiest to access. And of course, sorry. Sorry, I'm parenting in the meantime. So. So actually, so where I was, yeah, okay. So so actually, this API set is what we promise in the highest level, the QML, and we have the Qt layer just under it, and even under the Qt layer, we have the platform APIs. So that's how the SDK builds up, and it's, as you can imagine, the last 2 years, all of these components are very dynamically improving. The UI toolkit started off with pretty much nothing, with a Qt 5, with a very little component, and now we have a component. We have 1.1 version of the UI toolkit, and we have most of the platform APIs exposed to the QML layer. So I think we are on quite a good level, but you can expect more and more APIs to be exposed. One of the latest arrival, I hope it will land hopefully today or tomorrow, is the settings API. There was a big discussion in the community and the mailing list and all over that what API should you use for application settings. We had like two competing options. One is the Qt Labs settings, which came fairly recently. I think it's a few months old technology. And the other one was an Ubuntu settings, which was created by Christian, alias Kalekiana, which is a great API. So we were like considering to choose either of them, and we decided to go with the Qt Labs settings. So the Qt Labs settings QML API is going to be included to platform and in the click change route in the following days. This is how it happens. So actually, if any application or anybody of you needs a new API, the best way is to talk to us, come to the IRC channel, or drop a mail to the mailing list and explain what API do you need, and then we'll just study how well the API is documented, how stable it is, how much promise we can give it to, and so at some point we include it to the SDK, and we include it in the device. It depends on, of course, it's a long process. That's more or less. I don't know if I managed to cover the background context.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. We've got a bunch of questions, but before we do, is there anything that you know is coming in the future that you wanted to give everyone a kind of a sneak peek at?
Yeah, sure. So one important thing is that the target audience for the SDK tools are developers on LTS, so trusted are. So it's like, yeah, I think it's the right T-shirt, right? So so 1404. Our development focus is obviously on utopic. So how the releasing process goes is that first we implement the features, fix the bugs for utopic, then we stage it in the utopic, we dog food on that, and then I release it to a special staging PPA to tools development. I think I put a mail, or was it like this was David who put a mail on the mailing list. So the SDK team's tools development PPAs, where we are staging the trusty release, and after a few days when we find everything is good and all the tests they pass, then we release it to the SDK PPA, what you have. So you can expect always a little delay, kind of like a week between a bug being fixed or a feature being delivered and released to trusted. Yeah, heads up, one important feature which many of you were asking for is was the automatic setup of kits and change routes and the emulator. So many of you were kind of like confused or not really clear about that, how these components need to be set up and why they need to be set up in general. So we came up with a wizard for two places. One is the startup. So when you started as a Qt creator or Ubuntu SDK first time, first you will see a wizard dialog which will guide you through how you set up a click change route and how you create an emulator, and then happy you go, it works. And the other place is the project creation, so project wizard. So when you open a project, you will be offered kits to assign to the project, and if you don't have any, then the wizard will give you a possibility to create one. So we try to build in this automatic kit creation and change route creation to make your life a little bit easier. But and that is what we learned. But still, I give you another heads up that it won't take away the Qt creators' dependency on this kit concept. So if you start to develop for Ubuntu with Qt creator, I would really suggest to read the wizard text and read what kits and what kits are doing and how they work. So that's for the tools. Well, for the UI toolkit, one important thing is that Loic and Florian managed to switch on the fast bit for the Ubuntu shape. So from the next images, you can expect faster, like really faster Ubuntu shapes, which is used in many, many places. And day by day, when we release the UI toolkit, you can expect a bit prettier and a bit neater looking components. So we implement the design guideline one by one, week by week, more and more. So I think these are the most important heads up. Yeah, and of course the settings API, which I mentioned already.
So you mentioned just a minute ago about the integration with the kits in Qt Creator. Now you've had to integrate some pretty different technologies into all of this, things that were not designed with Qt Creator in mind and things that Qt Creator didn't have in mind, such as click change routes and the emulator, which I think comes from Android. What challenges have you faced trying to get all of those things to play nicely together?
Right. Thank you very much for that question. It's a good one. Qt Creator wasn't made for dealing with an Android emulator client or dealing with click change route. Obviously, click change route didn't exist or doesn't exist for Qt Creator. So the two challenges we faced are exactly with these two components. So Qt Creator was made to deal with sysroutes, so static sysroutes to access the Qt. I'm sorry.
This is the less glorious side of working at Canonical.
That's I don't know if it's a benefit or more like a curse, whatever. Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah, I think in the Western civilization we don't show our work to our kids. I think at Canonical we do. So yes, so Qt Creator is more made for the static sysroutes, not for change routes. And integrating a change route to Qt Creator is not exactly a trivial one. And the same with the devices. For example, the QML projects were never meant to be targeting on a remote Linux deployment. It was technically actually in a Qt Creator like strictly forbidden, and so that was like challenging, but not a really killing one. It just takes time. And of course, the other challenge we continuously face is that the change routes and emulators are dynamically created. The reason is that the image we work with and the platform we work with is a dynamically changing one. In the mid future, on the long-term future, definitely expect that you don't need to create change routes and you don't need to create emulators. You just get the target image and the target emulator as a package, as a single installable package. But as long the platform itself, the target is changing, that's difficult. Yeah, right. And just keep alive the kid. So that's the challenge. So we have a continuously changing platform and a continuously moving target, and so to create continuously changing change routes and continuously changing emulator and support them is not easy. That's it.
All right. So we've had quite a few questions come in. Nick, do you want to start off with those?
Yeah, I'm just taking a look. Guess we can go ahead and start at the top. So the first question we had come in was from Guest, and he asked, when will we receive Ubuntu for the 1+1? And Belkenza actually gave a good response, so I'll just parrot that back. Essentially, for hardware outside of what is we've listed as supported hardware on the Ubuntu wiki, and you can find that on wiki.ubuntu.com/touch, and I believe it's /devices. I think Mike can put the link in IRC. Yeah, and it's just essentially for this development period that we've been going through. We've targeted a small set of Nexus devices, and that was just to simply develop the platform. Now, very, very soon, you'll be able to buy Ubuntu on a phone and have it come pre-installed and have something to be able to hold and you know, really use and consume. So if you're looking for really getting Ubuntu on the phone, I would look at getting one of the Ubuntu phones later. If you have pre-existing hardware and you want to run Ubuntu on it, that's always possible. And so as Belkenza said, basically, you can look at the porting guide, which you'll also find on the wiki, or hang out on XDA and see what some of those developers might be doing over there as far as porting Ubuntu to the platform. So, what's the next question?
So Joyce asked a question about a sound card for an HP ProLiant, and Belkinza, again, had a helpful answer. She suggested that you ask in Hash Ubuntu, which is our official support IRC channel. There's a bunch of people who hang out in there, and they just give support all day, every day, to anyone who comes in with a question. And you'll get a far better answer there than you will asking for hardware support questions on this broadcast.
Right. I think the next one then is by Dicky, and he asks, why is the new Ubuntu 14.04 more heavy than before? So I think he's wondering about perhaps increasing requirements to run Ubuntu 14.04, and maybe specifically over Ubuntu 12.04.
I don't think our requirements really have changed since we switched to Unity, have they?
The only thing I was going to say is if the biggest change, I suppose, in the system requirements has been probably was from after 12.04, and that's when Unity 2D went away.
That's true. If you were using Unity 2D, things might be different.
Things might be different.
For Unity 3D, it's actually, in my experience, gotten quite a bit faster over the past few releases.
Correct. I would agree. So if you do find, for whatever reason, 14.04 does not run very well for you, and that may be because you were using what we used to call Unity 2D, which is a really light version of Unity that was actually built on Qt back in the day. And the idea was to support graphics cards that couldn't handle any 3D rendering or acceleration. And so that you might have that sort of feeling if you have a very old machine at this point. The good news is you can still run Precise, and it's still supported, I think, until 2017 or so. I think it's 2017. That's right, 5 years. At any rate, yeah, you can still run it. So there's no sort of reason that you have to upgrade, that you should feel compelled to upgrade. You'll continue to get updates and continue using Unity. And if you do get a new machine, go ahead and check out some of the new stuff. I think you'll find, as Michael said, that our system requirements have actually sort of come down a bit between 12.04 and 14.04 in regards to Unity 3D.
So as a follow-up, Dickie mentions he's using it on an Asus laptop, and that 12.04 ran better. He also mentions that he's running Xubuntu now. And for those who don't know, we have a number of different flavors of Ubuntu that have different default desktops and default applications. And Xubuntu is one that uses the XFCE or XFace desktop environment, which is quite a bit lighter weight. It's designed to be lightweight and fast and work better on old machines. And that's an option for you too. And that's, of course, part of Ubuntu itself. It's not a separate OS. It's just a separate set of defaults in that install CD. But you can install that also. If you have Ubuntu installed already, you can just install the Xubuntu-desktop package, and that'll pull all of that in.
That's a good point, Mike. Yep, exactly.
And on that topic, we've also got different flavors for KDE and LXDE, and also one for GNOME Shell also. And now one for Mate, which is the fork of the old GNOME 2. So there's quite a few different options that you can choose from depending on what your needs or desires are. All right, Juan Mario has already left, I think, but he asked, what software do you recommend for graphic design? So I personally use GIMP for most things. I use Inkscape a little bit, but I haven't learned quite enough Inkscape to do anything really fancy with it. I've seen people do some really incredible things in it, though.
Right. I think I'm going to have to agree with Mike. I don't do a whole lot. Most of the stuff that I do is GIMP. Probably use GIMP for 99% any graphics work I need to do. I have used Inkscape in the past, and I'm trying to think. I think I used Krita maybe once or twice, but
Yeah, Krita seems really nice. I think it's meant more for doing like digital paintings and stuff, though, which I've never tried to do before.
right. I thought some really cool. And I believe they have some nice if you have a Wacom tablet, pen, whatever. I think you'll find something like that more desirable than some of the other options. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah, I think it all depends on what your needs are and what kind of graphics you're trying to do. Find the right tool for that job.
Right. Exactly. So you can browse the store, see what happens, or ask on Ask Ubuntu as well. There's probably a meta question on Ask Ubuntu for graphic software. Dicky asks, oh wait, no, I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. John Rasks asks, is the performance of the emulator comparable to the performance of a real device?
So now that we've got an x86 emulator, it's quite a bit faster than when it used to be emulating ARM hardware on an x86 desktop. I think the performance is still lagging a bit behind an actual device because you are still running, an emulator in a virtual machine. And it's not really meant to replace a device. It's just an easier way to test, especially if you don't have one.
Right. So I mean, it's been my experience that generally you still have some load times, but once the device is up and running, it feels fairly responsive. Feels kind of like my phone, but it's really just sort of the load times. Loading application takes a bit longer as well. But again, once things are loaded, it feels quite nice. It doesn't feel like the old ARM HF emulator used to feel, where it was just really slow and visibly, laggy. So
yeah, and then anytime you add layers of virtualization or abstraction, you're going to slow things down. So I don't think an emulator is ever going to be quite as fast as an actual device, unless the host you're running it on is so significantly faster than an actual device that it makes up for it.
Yep.
All right, the next one is from Dicky again. He's asking, why don't Ubuntu ship a new phone with Ubuntu OS installed? Ubuntu is better than Microsoft. So we're all a little bit biased on that last question. I think we all agree that Ubuntu is better than Windows. As for a phone, we are going to be shipping, well, not us. We have two partners that are going to be shipping phones with Ubuntu OS installed. We have BQ out of Spain and Meizu out of China. And we've got a commitment date to get them an image that they can use on their devices that's coming up at the end of this month. If you've been following along with our development, you've probably heard the term RTM thrown around quite a bit. That's release to manufacturing. That's when we hand over a final set of features to these OEM partners to use on their phones. And after that, there'll be bug fixings and performance tuning for their specific devices before the devices themselves are actually ready to ship. But sometime after that RTM date is when you will start to see these phones come out. So it's still on schedule for the end of this year, which is what we've been saying since, I think, January when we announced these partners. So they are coming, and they're coming soon now.
Yes, that's very exciting, actually, having real devices, shipping from people, being able to go to the store and purchase it. So I'm excited. It's been something all working on for a while. Yeah.
And when you consider, so far there hasn't been any phone that's shipped with Ubuntu OS, and yet we've had tens of thousands of users and hundreds of apps already being written for an OS that's not actually on the market yet. That's pretty significant. And in fact, I'm wearing right now my Ubuntu Pioneers t-shirt, which we've given out to anybody who's published an app in the App Store so far. And we've still got a few slots left if anybody's interested in one of these free shirts. Go to developer.ubuntu.com download the Ubuntu SDK that Zoltan's been talking about and follow along with some of our tutorials to write your first app. You can literally start from installing the SDK and get to a published app in a matter of hours. Probably the longest is going to take you to decide what kind of app you want to write. The SDK is easy to use. The QML language is really, really easy to develop in and develop nice apps in. And then the store process has been narrowed down to about an hour to get approval sometimes. So if you want a free shirt, go write yourself an app, get it in the store, and we'll send you one for free.
Yeah, and just to echo Mike's comments on that, it really is pretty easy to use, and Zoltan and team have done a lot of really nice work inside of the SDK. So when you download it, you have a nice little app. It has help, documentation, like lots of stuff, all built right in. You can load up a nice little template. It'll have an app that'll run as soon as you open it up. Select the template. You already have something running. You can see it. You can play with it, tweak it. And then it's got a nice little tab to publish it as well. So it's sort of a one-stop shop to actually, like Mike said, figure out what you want to do, learn as you go, develop the application, and then put it in the store. It's just really, really a pretty slick experience if you've not had that experience yet. And so if you're sort of even sitting on the fence, maybe you're not a hardcore developer, QML is really easy to learn. It's not it's a very high-level language. It's not you're not going to be programming in C or anything crazy. You're not rewriting the kernel. Nothing crazy. It's pretty straightforward. And so yeah.
We've actually had quite a few people come in with no QML development experience, and sometimes without any kind of development experience. And they were some of the first people to write apps for our platform. And now they're the ones that are teaching people. If you're in the Ubuntu-app-devel channel, that's where we all tend to hang out. A lot of them are in there all the time now, giving advice and support to new developers. Just go ahead and put that in. Ubuntu-app-devel. And then, of course, we've also got a Google Plus community that's very active and growing for app developers that you can join. People like to post the work that they're doing there to get attention and get feedback from other developers. There's a lot of support that happens in there also. So definitely join that. Join the IRC channel.
All right. I think we've got a question for Zoltan now. John Rocks asks, should we be expecting any SDK changes or updates when 14.10 is released? So I think he's looking for some future preview, and maybe you can talk about. Yeah. I know you're not as involved in the toolkit and that sort of thing, but.
Okay, so for the APIs, one important thing is the API stability promise. So we won't deprecate or drop APIs. What you see there, we will add more APIs. So you can expect a few more UI components. And it depends. So if you can enable the Qt QML APIs, that's to be seen. On the tool side, I don't expect fundamental changes anymore. So I think what we have there is pretty complete. We try to make the user experience a bit more polished and more flawless, so a bit more easy. But I think what you see in the Ubuntu SDK tools is pretty much the final 14.10.
Okay, so what you were talking about earlier about delivering that sort of functionality, meaning being able to target future frameworks while still running LTSs, that's really more behind the scenes thing. So the toolkit itself isn't necessarily going to change. It just might get some additional features. Things behind the scenes will be polished up, that sort of thing. But you're not going to see necessarily new tabs on the sidebar, that sort of thing, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So actually, we are considering to start creating really blog posts and videos and documentation on how to use the tools. So far, we were a bit nervous about creating a YouTube video on how you create projects and how you deploy them, and we will change the application deployment flow next week and make the video obsolete. So I think now is the good time to start really like freezing the UX flow.
Awesome.
All right, we've got another question from John Rocks. At this time, are there any other developer incentives for app developers? I gather he means besides this rocking shirt here. So we do fairly regularly, we have developer competitions where we'll have an assortment of prizes. We've given out laptops before, we've given out phones. We did the last one. When did we do the last one? Was it earlier this year or late last year?
I think it was early this year.
I think so.
What, the last showdown?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was it March, April?
Okay, so we'll probably be doing another one later in this year. There's a good chance, actually, that our next competition might be centered around scopes, which is something we haven't talked about very much yet. But scopes are a way of adding search components to the Unity dash. If you're already using Unity, you're familiar with them on the dash. On the phone, we've got them too. And these let you write different small programs that go and find data either on the phone or on the internet and display it in a uniform way in the Unity dash. The APIs for that are all have all stabilized recently, and we're working on integrating it all with the Ubuntu SDK, getting some new templates in there for that, and being able to run them in the emulator. So as soon as all that's ready, we're probably going to be doing a contest around those, I would expect. So there will be some other incentives for you there. And we'll have other app developer competitions also.
Yes, scopes are actually pretty cool. So I'm excited to see them happen. And you know what? I think actually once it's all said and done, I think writing a scope may be even easier than writing an application. Could be wrong, but
so right now we have support for C++, and we're adding support for Go, and there's a long-term goal of having JavaScript support to make development easier. But one nice thing about writing a scope instead of an app is that you really don't have to think much about the UI. A scope's job is just to get the data and send the data to the dash, and it can send a little bit of information about how to display that data. But you don't have to worry about layouts or anything because the dash handles all of that for you.
right, which is the hardest part for me, is all that UI stuff.
Yeah, for those of us who aren't designers or UI UX people, having all of that taken care of for you is a nice bonus.
Right. Coley Wolfie Girl asks a rather interesting question, actually. And so she asks, as a user of Ubuntu Touch, what are the best ways of getting our voice out there to show developers that we would like their product on Ubuntu Touch? And do you think that Ubuntu on the desktop would be a good thing to help with trying to convince developers to develop for Ubuntu Touch? So it's kind of a two-part question there.
So one of the things that we've run into is we've kind of got a catch-22 in that most people who have apps, especially the top apps, care about number of devices. You know, how many users are they going to get their app in front of by targeting Ubuntu? And right now for Ubuntu phones, that's not many because we don't have any phones being sold yet. So that'll change a little bit once the first devices hit the market and we have an actual user base on the phones. Using the desktop is an option for us. It's a little bit of a difficult one because a lot of the work that's gone into 14.10 isn't available on the latest LTS desktop. And in fact, that leads me to a question that I had for Zoltan. He's still here. So we're in a bit of a unique situation in that we do have a desktop and a phone that are essentially the same environment, and trying to build the tools around that, especially with the Qt Creator, being able to target both desktop and devices. What challenges has that presented for you? I know you and I have talked multiple times about supporting future releases in an emulator, but current releases on the desktop.
I think that we're starting with the most critical problem with the Convergence application development is that the user interaction design is not exactly the same for desktop as for a touch device or a smaller screen, smaller form factor. So, and well, clearly the component during the component design, so the UI toolkit design, we tried to take in consideration that all these components are going to be used on desktop too. But clearly the priority is, especially with the recent development of business, that we are going to have a real device. It puts the priorities for the touch and the smaller screen factor work a bit higher. So the simple thing is that the desktop interaction design is not as developed, not as ready from the point of design as for the touch. So yes, you can create already applications for utopic or even for LTS, but that's not going to be as polished and as pretty as for a phone. So that's one design, that it's a different user interaction.
And in fact,
the
several
background
forms, I think, are on the desktop in a PPA already, aren't they, Nick?
Yeah, we have a component set. So we have a kind of API set for desktop, but the only reason for that is that the Qt creator is using it. So we depend on it. That's why it's there. So you can kind of hijack it and use it for on your purposes. You can create Ubuntu component based applications for the LTS. That's technically possible, but you won't get the most developed and the most recent components from what you see in the image, the device image.
Right. I think starting with the release of the Utopic desktop in October, that there's going to be a much better experience writing apps for the desktop, because you will have all of the latest components and APIs available there that you don't currently have if you're on Trusty.
Yeah, so and it's the same with the scopes too. It's just because you have in the runtime you have the environment which supports the scope development fully. It supports the UI toolkit development fully. So yes, if you are on the Utopic desktop, and when the Utopic is going to be released, then it will be much easier. But for the LTS, it's a little bit more bumpy.
Yeah, we've had quite a bit of development in the APIs between the release of 14.04 just back in April and where we're at now. But I think after October, yeah, we'll be able to use the desktop a lot more to convince people to target that version of the Ubuntu APIs. Yeah. And that'll help leverage that. With that, in addition to the phones that are going to be added at that point, is definitely going to be a big help for us to get more developers on board.
I would even say the same for LTS. So if you want to develop a desktop application for 14.04, so if you are targeting the stable long-term supported, then I would go with the UI toolkit available for Trusty. I would go for it. It's fairly good. You will have limited components, but the components there are good for application development. It's pretty. It's much more pretty than the stock Qt widgets or the stock Qt QML components. So it's really good for that. You just need to understand the limitations. That's like normal with every UI component set.
Right, and we've got forward compatibility on that too. So if you write an app using the 14.04 APIs, it'll still work in 14.10.
Yes.
You just can't go the other direction. You can't use the new APIs in an old release of Ubuntu.
Well, in some cases, all you need to change the import line, that you import the 1.0, not the 1.1 component set, and you might be lucky that you use an API what is backward compatible.
Right. So I think you're going to see, as Mike and Zoltan were alluding to, I think you're going to see a lot of that cross-pollination occur. Desktop developers who will push devices to touch, and phone developers who will come across on the desktop as well. So I think you're really going to see growth in both areas. And I agree, it'll definitely be spurred on by the release of Utopic, which brings a lot richer API set, as well as actually having shipping devices. So you have a consumer base for your application as well. So, yeah. Hopefully that answered the question. Yeah. So yeah, as a user of Ubuntu Touch, what are the best ways to show developers what you'd like? I think the first is obviously picking up a device, as we already talked about. What other ways? I guess we can really answer the first part of our question. What other ways can a user sort of communicate with developers? The other one I can think of off the top of my head is reviews. I know that's sort of historically become kind of a thing for mobile developers to read review feedback and sort of interact with their users in that manner. But Mike, do you have any other thoughts?
Basically, whatever way that developer uses to interact with their community of users, you can use that to let them know that you're interested in that. We've had quite a few people I know contact, for example, WhatsApp, and let them know that they want to use WhatsApp on an Ubuntu phone. So just letting them know that there's interest there, especially if it's coming from outside of Canonical, really shows them that there's an audience there for them to target. And once that gets to a size that makes it worthwhile for them to port their app to Ubuntu, then that'll happen. So just letting them know that there's demand for it is probably the best thing that can be done at this point.
That's very true. Yeah.
All right, we've got about 10 minutes left. We don't have any more questions, I don't think. But there's a little bit of time. If you've got any last-minute questions, go ahead and ask them now. Don't wait any longer, or there's a good chance we'll have ended the broadcast before you get to answer it. While we wait, Zoltan, I just wanted to ask, you're not new to Qt development. You were doing this before you joined Canonical, weren't you?
Yeah, we can say so. I think if you find me on the LinkedIn, you will find my profile. Yeah, I was working on my Amigo projects, and I was working on SDK there too. And for the MIMO, which was the N900 device, that was still on the Hildon desktop. That was very much GTK based. But for the so-called Harmattan, the early MIGO, that was for the N9 device. That was already using the Qt stuff, and there was a QML into times. So yeah, I'm not really new to Qt and Qt-based SDKs, but Qt changed a lot, and the whole Qt community changed a lot since. And I must say that the Qt community is a very friendly community. I think one thing in common with the Ubuntu community and with the Qt community is a general atmosphere in the community is usually very positive, very friendly, very supportive. In many other communities, sometimes you can meet really like strange, how to say, maybe a little bit like even like arrogant discussions or very heated discussions. I think these two communities are the Qt community and Ubuntu community, where usually the tone is friendly and happy, and that's I like about both communities. So I think it's a good combination with Qt and Ubuntu, especially from that aspect.
So I've heard a lot of people who used Harmattan and swear by it as being like the gold standard of phone OSs. And then I've heard a lot of people compare a lot of the features that we're adding to that. Are we very similar in some ways to things that were originally introduced in Harmattan?
I think there are similarities. So, for example, when we were designing the Ubuntu UI toolkit components, one step of the API design was always to to compare to existing APIs, and the Migo API set was always one of them. So we're always comparing that what's available for Android, what's available for iOS, and what was available for Migo. So, and yes, we learned from that a lot. And we have in our team, and we have in the whole Ubuntu team, a lot of people who have experience with that.
It sounds like our time with you is just about up.
No, it's not. No panicking. It's normal. Yeah. So on the platform user experience, I think the driving values are very similar. That's why you might see some similarities. So making the user experience simple and clean. That was the same for Harmattan, and that's the same for us to achieve certain things with the least move, with the simplest gesture. That's something what I think you will find common in both. So yeah, I find a lot of similarities, but there are certain things I like better in Ubuntu, but it's just difficult to explain. It's more like the feeling of like touch. So how I use the device, how I use the platform. The SDK, I certainly try to make it better than with Migo, and I think it is better. I think it's way much better. It's less technical what we provide. So with the Harmattan SDK, you really had to understand all the tool chains and dev kits and all these difficulties, but especially the platform SDK. But I think in our case we try to hide many of those. So I think we try to make a better job.
I think we've definitely put together a really nice set of tools. I mean, the developer experience is already really, really nice one. It's definitely the best developer experience we've had on Ubuntu to date. So we're head and shoulders above where we were a couple of years ago. And you guys, your whole team has done a fantastic job with that.
Thank you very much. And so the other thing, what is, I must say, one big difference compared to other SDKs I've worked and I've seen is that I was just checking before this hangout the changelogs for the UI toolkit and the Ubuntu SDK, and I see lots of contribution from other guys than the SDK team. So yeah, a lot of people are contributing to it. It's very unique. I mean, you cannot imagine the Xcode or the Visual Studio being contributed to. So for us, it's a big achievement. I think it's already a success.
Yeah, I think we're rather unique in that all of our development tools and all of the UI components and everything also are all open source. I know there's some others that are partly open source or have intentions of being open source, but the fact that everything of ours is open and available to community contribution is a really important feature, and definitely matches with the Ubuntu philosophy that we develop everything with.
Yeah, you guys. I was just saying, you're making me nostalgic for the I had a N770 and N800 back in the day. I just remember that stuff. But the interesting thing there with some of the SDK stuff is that you went from a pen design to touch input. I still remember the first big OS change. But of course, as Mike was saying, all that stuff on the platform side was being developed sort of behind the scenes. So while the code may or may not have been open, it was the difference here is really we have open development. So you can see what's going on right now today, and you can dive in and use current stuff. So everything that we're doing with the SDK, all the changes that we're making, you can see them live, in the open. Yeah, so good stuff. He's tempting me with N800s. I was cleaning out my garage not a week or two ago, and I pulled it out. It was still there in the little gray sleeve that came in. I used to love that thing. It was really sort of a unique device ahead of its time. So, but I was doing a lot of the stuff that you consider like smartphone type esque things now. With that, a few years before smartphones sort of took off and became a big thing. So, but yeah, what we have now is really amazing. So we've sort of gone from that transitionary period of Linux and kind of quasi SDK stuff and pen input to this beautiful like UI designed experience, completely all touch with the all the components in the SDK and stuff. If you look back, I think Alan Pope had some old screenshots of some of our first versions of these applications. But if you just look at the journey that we've come through and the UI designs, the components, I mean, things are they're really beautiful now, and not that they weren't before, but you could really see all those little refinements, and that stuff really adds up, all those little touches. So if you want a trip down touch memory lane, and maybe we should put together a post, Mike, on this at some point, showing the
a flashback episode.
Flashback episode of the versions of the SDK all the way up until release. I think it would be kind of cool to see that. So. Yeah,
we've certainly come a long way. All right, well, we are out of time. Once again, I want to encourage anyone who's listening to go grab a copy of the Ubuntu SDK. There's instructions on developer.ubuntu.com on how to get that and get it set up, and start writing your first app. It's really a lot of fun to do and very easy to get started. So go do that. If you're interested in other videos, we do them on Ubuntu On Air pretty frequently. You can follow us on youtube.com/UbuntuOnAir, Twitter @UbuntuOnAir, and of course UbuntuOnAir.com is where we post all of the videos and embedded chat. All right, thank you, Zoltan, for joining us and giving us all that information about the SDK. And again, thank you to you and your team for all of the work that you've put into this.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the invitation, and good night for all of you.
All right. Good night. Thanks, everybody.
See you. Thanks, guys.